The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Recording. We are recording. Oh, man. It's been a long week, Jim.
Yes, it has. And yeah. I think next week, at least one day of next week is going to be even longer because before we started to record, we were just talking about the time that it takes to go see a movie, juggling our work schedules and family and everything else.
Wait, you work and have a
yeah, and do this.
You have a
and do this. So when a movie is even 2 hours plus, sometimes it sucks your day away.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I want to stop 1 second because I love trailers. But when I'm sitting in the theater and I have a finite window in order to see this movie and go on about my day, and all of a sudden that green screen comes up again, another trailer, I like my body goes limp. I'm like, here we go.
Because you always have like that guy or that girl in the theater that hates trailers. And when that green screen comes up, you're right. Sometimes you got to be that guy. You're looking at your watch, you're looking at your phone, like, what time is it now?
And when you're talking about a big movie, like Spider-Man, there's multiple trailers attached to these.
Yeah. And they do it for a purpose, because we've often said, well, why not start the movie at the time it says in the paper or on Fandango or whatever? They would never do that.
And apparently, just because between you and me, we're only separated not by that much in New York, but then we got Christina over in Chicago. Like, we can all watch the exact same movie and get completely different trailers.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. There's no rhyme or reason to it, it seems.
No.
Next week, Batman.
3 hours.
Just shy of 3 hours long. So, talking about juggling, and I usually see these on a Saturday, so I don't work on the weekends, thankfully. So that's not a concern. But my son has a birthday party to go to on Saturday.
No.
And that's at 1:00. So I had to scramble all the area theaters to see how I could pull this off. I don't want to go see a 3-hour movie at 7 p.m. So I have to drive to Middletown, New York, which is about an hour from here, give or take, and see an 8:30 a.m. showing of Batman.
8:30 a.m.
Yes.
I can't even believe that's outside of like Manhattan that they even have screens.
Yeah, well, it's that there is a time for 8:30 at Middletown. So that'll give me enough time. It's 3 hours. I'll be out, again, factor in the trailers. I'll probably be out at noon. That'll give me just an hour to get back to this birthday party, and which starts at 1.
That's a 7-hour commitment. That's a 6-7 hour commitment.
It is. That is a work day. That is basically a work day.
I want that work day, by the way, because 7 hours, that's when I take my lunch.
So I'm already in the mindset where I'm mad at this movie being 3 hours long.
Don't go in angry. What have you?
This is true. Don't bake angry.
Don't bake angry. Don't bake angry. Don't watch movies angry. You got to go with an open mind. These people did not know when they were making this. Actually, I think the initial cut was over 5 hours. I'm going to lay my cards on the table right now. I have very, very high aspirations for the Batman. I'm not a DC guy. You listen to this podcast long enough. We swim in the Marvel pool.
Yeah.
DC, how many times has this character been rebooted? He's a younger guy. He looks a little more unrefined. I think they're going to dive into the more like the detective aspect of this character. So
we'll talk more on this next week, but I think that they're finally wising up and taking cues from Marvel. They looked at what they did with Spider-Man, rebooted that twice. before they hit gold with Tom Holland. And maybe they're trying to do the same thing here with Robert Pattinson.
I mean, I hate to say it, but outside of Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, those are your three iconic characters. Those are the pillars of the DC universe.
Yeah.
There's too much money. Someone actually asked me yesterday who my favorite Batman was. And I don't know because I haven't seen this one yet. That's next week. We're already skipping. Do you want to just not talk about Uncharted?
Well, this is kind of like a footnote episode, I feel, in terms of the first half anyway.
All right. I think, well, first of all, if you're a loyal listener, you already realize that we're one TMI member down, that Christine is not here. We told you last week she would not be here. So if you continue to listen to this, Jim and I thank you very much.
Yeah. We already got your listen. Even if you listen for a second, it logs
there you
it.
Go.
So,
but she's the one in the upper left-hand corner that's already flagging us that we are way off topic on this week's episode. We are already talking about next week.
I think that our Uncharted discussion is going to be quick, so we better pad out this episode a little bit at least.
All right, so we are talking about the new Tom Holland Uncharted based on a video game. We are going to pair this up with a completely obvious national treasure, Nicolas Cage.
Do you think only maybe Goonies would have been more obvious than National Treasure?
I actually said that last week. As soon as I saw the trailer when the damn boats are being lifted.
With the boats, yeah. So, but actually having seen Uncharted now, I think National Treasure is probably better.
So, but let's talk a little news because we left some news on the table last week. So I do want to talk about some items. We'll get into it, and then we'll definitely go Uncharted.
Yes, and anybody that hopped on our bandwagon last week because of our book club, this is not a book club episode. Sorry.
No, but apparently that was very popular, correct?
And it continues to be. Yes, it does.
That's great. Can you tell me about this? Apparently we got called out on Twitter that we somehow spoiled this movie with the image of an 80-year-old novel cover.
Yes. Well, no, we didn't really. It just said
the guy.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, when you read an email or text message or a tweet, whether or not they're making fun or if they're making a joke or not. Jeff always works very diligently at putting together artwork that we can put on our social media feeds that advertise our episodes. And we usually pair up two movies together on a typical episode. And Jeff pairs up artwork that he finds on these two movies, usually movie posters. Last week, since we were doing the book club episode on Death of the Nile, we're comparing the book to the movie. So Jeff finds the movie poster and he finds a very pulp fiction-esque book cover of Death on the Nile. Slightly provocative, I must say. But someone was concerned that the book cover, because it has some details from the main setup
of a body. I think we all know going in that there's a murder mystery.
There's a death. It doesn't say who it is or...
No, correct.
Somebody was concerned that saw this, that they were now spoiled because they hadn't read the book yet.
A book that was written in 1937, mind you.
And I'm almost convinced, looking at the cover, that it was like a dial-up pulp cover. There are some things that could be construed as being from the story, but I'm hesitant to say anything because I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Right. I will say there is a porthole with a guy looking through it at this body. He looks like the creeper from Scooby-Doo.
Or he looks like Boris and Natasha from, Bullwinkle. And there isn't a character in the book that even looks like that, except for Perot, because he's got a mustache, this guy.
Whatever.
This villain in the porthole who doesn't exist in the book. So there was no danger of a spoiler whatsoever, but it just thought it was funny since it was the actual book cover of an edition of Death on the Nile.
I was actually hoping that they were more upset with the headline that we accused Professor Plum in the conservatory with the candles.
That could be. I didn't even think of that.
I always played Colonel Mustard, by the way. I don't know why, but I always was Colonel Mustard in Clue, if you don't understand that.
No. I'm trying to think of the other characters. I don't think I ever had a preference.
Ms. White, Professor Plum. I feel like there was another man, but maybe not. Yeah, Peacock's not a color.
Mr. Green? Was there a Mr. Green?
I think there is a Mr. Green. So anyways, all right. We now digress.
Yes.
We are way off course. So let's go and do a little news. Jim, if I say the words Wonder Twins activate, you would immediately know what that is.
Yes, I would.
Correct?
Yep.
Okay. Zan and Jaina are getting their own cinematic treatment. The Wonder Twins are getting a movie.
Wow.
It looks like HBO Max, Warner Brothers. They've hired this guy Adam Sickle, who has worked. I guess he's just finishing up work on Black Adam, which is the Dwayne Johnson superhero Shazam character, and he's worked on Rampage and Scoob. But these characters, very obscure characters, I mind you, who first showed up in the Super Friends cartoon that we all grew up with in the 70s, are getting their own show. Or a show or a movie. I'm not entirely sure. It says cinematic treatment, so it's got to be a movie.
It's got to be. Did those characters ever bleed into the comics, or were they just part of the Super Friends cartoon?
No. So that's the thing, which is in the 70s, DC ran a series that carried over from the TV show. So they show up in the Super Friends comic in the 70s, but it's not considered DC continuity. It's not until I think 2019 that they officially showed up. So it's a relatively new book. But yes, they are part of DC continuity. They are two characters that exist in the universe. What's weird is that I was looking up on Wikipedia and they're considered extraterrestrials. They're aliens.
Well, they are blue, aren't they?
Were they blue? Sometimes I get them confused.
Gleek was blue. Monkey.
Gleek was. And so I guess because he never had any superpowers. Their superpowers is that Jan turned into any water-based and Jaina was any animal. Like they could trade, like they were.
Well, I thought that there was once where one of them said shape of water and then the other one became a bucket.
A bucket. That's exactly in my head too. But everything I'm saying, and maybe it's changed over the years. Yes, because I also remember getting them confused with Wendy and Melvin, and they had a dog. They were also like goofy sidekicks that were in the Super Friends.
No, they had the Wonder Twin powers activate and the rings.
The rings.
And then they would say shape of water, form of water, shape of bucket. And so then Gleek would pour the water over the bad guy or something.
Right, this is dumb. I think she turned into an eagle and flew the bucket and dumped him off.
Oh.
I don't remember now.
So who became the bucket? Or if it just...
That is so funny you say that because that's the exact visual I had, which is the bucket full of water. So whatever. Anyways, so I found that interesting. We are digging deep into some of these characters now. So I don't know if there's any Wonder Twin fans out there, but there you go. You have something to look forward to.
But some of us who were never DC fans only really had Super Friends as a point of reference. I never bought a DC comic back then, but I watched Super Friends. So I just assumed that the Wonder Twins were part of that DC continuity, just like Aquaman, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman.
Anyways, let's stay in the animated universe because you just mentioned that Super Friends were kind of like your gateway drug into the DC universe. X-Men, the animated series, which was in the late 80s, early 90s. We talked about this a couple of weeks back that Disney Plus has announced they're bringing this series back. X-Men 97, and it's going to pick up directly where the original series ended in the 90s. And it sounds like a lot of original voice actors are coming back. A lot of the creative are coming back. And they've announced that it will be a 10-episode season. This is pretty big because I think kids younger than us, this was their exposure to the X-Men, was this show. I was already out of college, and yet still the animation was phenomenal. The stories were very true to the comic books of the time. And I remember this vividly, and I loved it. But even bigger, and you might want to close your ears for this, but there are potential ties to Multiverse of Madness. I know for a fact you probably did not see the Doctor Strange trailer that dropped during the Super Bowl.
No, I did not.
Okay, well, that's all I'm going to say. Potential lead-in. That's all I'm going to say.
Also, talking about cartoons from the 90s that came from Marvel, I noticed that there's a resurgence of Spider-Man action figures based on that early 90s cartoon. I just saw him in Target yesterday.
Really? Well, Spider-Man's big. Spider-Man's never really gone away, but I think it's just a whole new generation now.
I think that speaks to the strength of that character, that generation after generation.
Well, he's the everyman.
Loves him.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Spider-Man, we've talked about this numerous times. Spider-Man's, he doesn't have superpowers he's not an alien like Superman. He's not a billionaire like Batman. He's not, he's not a mutant. He's a stupid kid who can't keep a job, can't get to school on time, and is forced with these powers, and he feels he's got to do right. So are those episodes on Disney Plus?
Yeah, they were last time I checked, although I'm a bigger fan of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, so I've watched a few of those.
You gotta go out and get your Miss Lion action figure.
Miss Lion.
Firestar actually is now officially in the Marvel universe. She showed up a couple of years ago.
I'd like to get the background story of that, how they decided that Iceman of all characters would be. And then, of course, they'd have to have his counterpart, which would be Firestar.
They got mad. She could just melt.
They never mentioned, that he was part of the X-Men or anything. He was just a college kid like Peter Parker.
No, but I do think, were there episodes? I think maybe the Juggernaut showed up on that show. The only other news item I have right now, which is we just lost Sally Kellerman at the age of 84.
Mm-hmm.
For old guys like us, she was the original Hot Lips Houlihan from MASH, but I'll always remember her as the teacher in Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield.
Speaking of Back to School, that also stars someone that will feature heavily in an upcoming episode, Keith Gordon.
Oh,
going to be talking about him in 2 weeks.
Right. That's right. He is in that. Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, call me sometime when you have no class. So, yeah, Sally Kellerman. Unless you have anything else to bring to the table.
Nope, I do not. I do not.
Okay.
I guess we have to get into
No,
Uncharted.
You just saw this yesterday. Correct?
Yesterday afternoon. Yes.
Okay.
I did.
And I just saw this on Thursday night. And I will say my theater had a fair amount of kids in it. Teenagers.
Yeah, my theater, I saw it as usual the earliest showing of the day on a Saturday. Well, not 8 a.m. Yeah, my local theater, unfortunately, that's why I have to drive an hour next week because they don't open that early, my local.
Do they offer you popcorn at 8 a.m. in the morning, by the way?
I'm going to find out. Maybe it's bagels instead of popcorn. Who knows?
That is the earliest I've ever heard of a theater being open.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane. All right. So anyways, okay. I digress.
My start time for Uncharted was 12:40. And there were probably 10 other people in the theater, and they were all younger, like early 20s, I think.
So the fact that this is based on a video game that neither you or I have ever played, I'm assuming. I know vaguely.
Yeah, I had no idea where I thought it was just an original movie, but then when the PlayStation thing came up at the beginning, I was like, oh, this is the first. That's interesting that PlayStation logo comes up because Sony owns PlayStation. Yeah.
Sony PlayStation, and this is the first in their PlayStation universe, because obviously they have these beautiful properties that the whole generation have grown up playing. Sonic the Hedgehog right now, they've got numerous things in the pipeline. Last of Us is getting its own TV series. Halo's going to be a series. Sonic's obviously getting a sequel, and then BioShock is in development with Netflix. Once again, everyone wants their own Marvel universe. MCU, man, just laying down the groundwork and everyone's playing catch up.
So do we think that Sonic is going to show up in the Uncharted sequel?
That would be... I would pay to see that. This Uncharted is based on a video game. And I will say this opening sequence is brilliant. This opening sequence is directly lifted from one of the video games. This is actual play of this character. You open up the screen with your main character free falling out of a cargo plane.
You see that he's stuck with the cargo that's still stuck to the plane, which in itself is a lift from The Living Daylights, which is the Timothy Dalton James Bond movie. The scene is right out of The Living Daylights. That this happens in that movie.
Listen, let's lay our cards on the table right now. This is to me, this is the case of the snake eating its own tail. You are building a movie around a video game that leans heavily into action movies. So every sequence that you see in this, you can't help but just compare it to its original source material. And we already laid out a handful of these, Goonies, The Raiders of the Lost Ark, National Treasure. For a movie called Uncharted, it is anything but, because you are treading on very well-grounded source material.
So this is a device to really hook you into the movie, because the movie proper doesn't have a huge opening. It's a buildup of these kids together in the nun-run orphanage. So you got to have a flash forward of Tom Holland on this fight and hanging out of a plane. And suddenly you get about 10 minutes of that. And then boom, 15 years earlier, Boston. And so we're like, oh, okay, gonna have to wait 2 hours now to find out what happened on the plane.
Yep. So they fill in the gap, which they hook you, because it is a great sequence. And I had to dig deep because I wanted to know how they filmed this. The aerial sequences in this movie were pretty flawless. I thought they were well put together. This director, Ruben Fleischer, who directed Zombieland.
Zombieland, that's what he's best known for. Yeah. Yeah, I was happy that there was at least wind whipping their hair as they were falling. Yes, it was well done.
I thought it was good. I liked that opening. I was like, all right, we're now in. This kid doesn't.
Although hopping from container to container, like in midair on the back of a plane, I don't know if that would happen.
So you're saying you can't suspend your disbelief?
Well, it takes it takes at least a few minutes to suspend my disbelief. And 2 minutes in, I'm like, I didn't go in wanting to hate this. So I allowed myself to be kind of swept up in the story. But I had just seen National Treasure, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, the day before. So that was a mistake, because like you said, you got to, your brain works that way. You compare it to what you've seen before.
But I think what you're talking about, this idea, right. These cargo containers are being tethered on the back of this plane. They're thousands of feet in the air, fish flying left and right. You got henchmen shooting at him and clawing at him, and he's literally he's jumping, leapfrogging. So, but if you buy into this idea that these are the rules of the universe, these death-defying acts can happen, because we do see him later doing some serious parkouring. And I'm like, is Tom Holland doing his own stunts in this?
I think he is, because he is basically, this is the same stuff that Peter Parker does.
He is very much in a Peter Parker vein. I think you need that level of disbelief, because by the end of it, the stupid ships, 500-year-old ships, are being held aloft by helicopters, and they are careening in the mountains. They're running into each other. They're shooting. And it's like, these things would have fallen apart in a heartbeat.
When it was a foot off the ground, they would have fallen apart. When the Nets got it off the ground. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, if you buy into this from the beginning, and it's very Raiders of the Lost Ark, you get that action sequence up front in Raiders of the Lost Ark as well. You see Indiana Jones doing what he's doing. He's treasure hunting. He goes in there, he gets the idol, he gets chased out by the Jovitos or whatever. He manages to escape. And then you cut to the lull of him back as a.
But the great thing about that is that the action sequence isn't like a cheat. It doesn't bring you forward into the movie. It allows you to know who this character is up front. But this, you're like in the middle of this battle that you don't know how it began or what's going on here. So it's really a device to it's like a newspaper with the headline that hooks you.
But this is a prequel that sets up the character, so he really doesn't have any other action adventures leading into this. He's a younger version of this character that you play, and I've been told that the character that you play, this Nathan Drake that you play in the video games, is a very likable character, and they go out of their way numerous times to tell them you're a very likable guy, and it's just like, all right, there's a lot of stuff in this that's probably if you play the video games, there's got to be references. There's got to be nods to this stuff that I just didn't pick up on. There's a sequence at the end when they finally make it back to that cargo, and you see how he escapes. And the one thing that they did right, which is when they get back to that sequence and you see how it all unfolds, they don't just show you the same thing again. They show you what's actually happening inside the plane while he's trying to leapfrog his way back into it.
Right.
So they're filling in the gap. They're tying the characters back together. But him and the girl splash down. They see an island. As they're making their way out of the water, there's a guy on the beach who just out of nowhere, what happened to you guys? And he kind of looks and he winks at the camera. And I'm like, who is this? Like,
I had no idea who this was. I didn't even look it up.
Well, I'll tell you right now. This guy, he is the voice actor of as Nolan North. He is the voice actor who does Nathan Drake's voice on the video games. You and I didn't know who he was.
I had no idea who he was, and they made it so obvious that this guy was somebody that you should know who he is. Yeah. That it took me out of the movie for like 5 minutes. Yes. I was racking my brain. Is he from a TV show? Was that MacGyver? Who was that?
But is he somebody else in the movie that we haven't seen yet? Is he a character? Yeah.
But I mean, if you're going to do that, like, sure, have him in the movie, but don't make it that obvious. You know, have him on the beach and just they walk by him or something, so it doesn't distract you from the actual plot.
They literally stop and he winks at the camera after he has his little dialogue with them. Yeah.
So this character, Nate Drake, is an orphan, and he lives in the orphanage with his brother Sam, who's older, who's probably 15 or something at the beginning of the movie. Yeah. And they break into a museum and they're looking at Magellan's map, very reminiscent again of National Treasure and the Declaration. So they get caught though, and they get brought back to the orphanage, and it's 3 strikes and you're out for Sam because he's done this before. So the police are going to take him away. I don't know, put him in a foster home or something.
You're already in an orphanage. Where
are you going to go? So the nun says to Nate, the younger brother, now say your goodbyes. And so they go back to their room. And of course, Sam escapes. He's like, I'm not going with them. So for the rest of the movie, Nate is chasing after what happened to his brother. And you see him as a bartender, years later as Tom Holland. And he is a scam artist. Not only does he work at the bartender, he robs the patrons of their jewelry and what have you.
So you would lose your job doing this.
You would. Eventually, somebody would figure it out.
I think he watched Cocktail one too many times as well.
He was throwing those drinks back and forth. Yeah, he was in it.
He looks like a kid who just jumped over the cat. Like he looks completely like a 12-year-old.
Yeah, he does.
Tom Holland, even though he's aged since we've been introduced to him in the Spider-Man universe, he still looks like a child. He does not belong behind a bar.
Right.
Dude, get away. You're not even old enough to drink.
But into his bar comes Sully. No, not from Monsters, Inc. It's Mark Wahlberg. That would have made a better movie. Yeah. So this guy's name is Sully, and apparently he is an adventurer and a collector and a thief himself. And he knew the brother, Sam. So he knows, and he's going after this map of Magellan and the gold that Magellan was after. And there's this whole historical backstory. So break it down really simply. Sully wants Nate's help because he knows that Nate can figure out where the gold is from looking at the map and where Magellan went to. And Antonio Banderas is playing.
Yeah, Santiago
Moncada. So his family bankrolled Magellan centuries ago.
So he feels it's his.
So he feels that the gold belongs to his family, and he kills his father. So he's a bad guy, and he's got his own crew looking for the gold, which is Braddock, played by Taddy Gabrielle, a worthy adversary to Sully and Nate Drake as they are looking for the gold. So that's basically it. It's like a race to the gold, very much like National Treasure was a race to the Freemasons' buried treasure.
Yeah, and that's where the similarities end. They dangle this mystery of where is Sam throughout this movie with absolutely no resolution until you get into the second teaser credit scene, because we're told he's dead.
Which is not the case.
No, but the problem with this movie is that they go from clue to clue so easily and so effortlessly. You were looking for 500-year-old treasure. You're skulking around in the basement of a 500-year-old castle, and yet every clue is still there. They come around the catacombs. They're using phones. My cell phone doesn't work 10 feet away if I'm outside my car. And yet he's above ground. They're below ground. They're still able to triangulate their position and talk to each other. All the clues are still laid out there. Nothing has been destroyed. There's a rave in the middle of the basement that they through.
Stepped into the Matrix 2 for about 10 minutes.
We're led to believe that they are descendants of Sir Francis Drake, but none of that really informs you. Even when we're introduced to them as kids, nothing really tells you that this kid is a genius. other than the fact that he can remember stuff. So,
or that he knows a lot about history.
Right. Antonio Banderas does nothing. And then, spoiler alert, they kill him. All he does is stand around and twirl his mustache. He doesn't get involved.
He's only there to elevate the threat of Braddock, who kills him, who ends up being the main baddie in the movie.
But that's too bad, because she's not a formidable. The other thing, too, is so they introduced this character, Chloe, who is a really fun character. The actress name is Sophia Ali, and she comes from Grey's Anatomy or whatever. I've never seen her before, and she holds her own as a character. She's up against these other two. They team up together to solve this mystery, and yet they find a way to sideline her in the third act.
That was a bit bizarre, because her character was so spot on, because you think that she's an ally at first, but then it turns out that she's only in it for herself. She's not bad or she's not good. She's like right in the middle. So she is anticipating all their twists and turns up to that point. Nate just leaves out a fake set of coordinates for her to find and sends her off the trail. Like you said, it gets rid of her for a good 15, 20 minutes in the end game of this movie. And then she finally comes back at the end when he needs somebody in the water in a boat, just so conveniently. Yeah. So that was a little bit disappointing that she wasn't involved in the big action scene at the end.
Because she was one of the more likable characters.
Yeah. But I did think that the key aspect was pretty cool, because there's these two crosses that fit together. And as they go through the movie, these two crosses work as keys to fit into all these ancient stone structures. And once they do that, all the stones start moving. It opens secret doors. So I thought that aspect was good. But what I didn't like was the chemistry or lack of between Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, because it just seemed forced. They didn't have this easy camaraderie.
No, because Sully is an unlikable character, and he's using Nate throughout this entire movie. He does nothing. He does not dirty his hands at all. Here's Nate. He's chasing Chloe through the streets because she steals the cross. How she got it out of his backpack when she was nowhere near him, I have no idea. But she gets the cross. Well, you lost it. And so now this kid's chasing her through the cities of Barcelona, up and down. And Mark Wahlberg does nothing.
My ankles are shot. I can't run after her as she escapes.
We know he's funny. If you've seen Ted, we know this guy can be funny. He is unlikable and he's unfunny. He doesn't have. I laughed twice in this movie. When we went to the castle and Nate goes, "Nuns. Why does it have to be nuns?" Which is obvious. And they do go out of their way to reference Indiana Jones, to reference Jack Sparrow. So they know what they're doing, in the sense that they are just climbing on the shoulders of these far superior franchises. I didn't like Mark Wahlberg at all. He was a jerk. And maybe that's the way the character is in the video games.
Maybe it is, but like to your point, when they're bantering, because you don't like his character, it seems like he's insulting Tom Holland.
He's mean. Right.
So you don't really think what he's saying is funny, because you're taking offense to it because of his inaction.
And even though Nate knows he's being used, he continues, because they're dangling this idea that, Sam, what happened to my brother? Where's Sam? And it's only later in the movie that he's told that Sam was killed, and that it was his Braddock who killed him. So now he's got a vendetta against this girl. On paper, it's a great cast. For the most part, it does have good chemistry. But again, the chemistry is between Tom Holland and this Sophia girl, not with Mark Wahlberg. The action sequences I thought were decent. The aerial stuff I thought was phenomenal. You're globetrotting, you're going all over the place. This should be a turn your brain off and let me just enjoy this type of a movie. But it's not. It's just, why is this not fun?
I wouldn't go that far. There is some fun to be had there. The guy at the checkout counter, when I got my popcorn and the ticket, he was like, "Awesome movie. Awesome." I'm like, "Great." So I was keyed for it. Now
that's the worst, because you look at the poster gives you nothing. It's just the two of them standing there. And if you're invested in these video games, I think you want to go, you play these video games, like I said, I keep going back to that opening aerial sequence. That is a real play in a game. That's pretty intense. as a character playing video games. So I know that people spend hours and hours invested in these adventures. So I think you go in with, I love the video games. I'm going to automatically love seeing these people on screen. You and I, not so much. And I couldn't just disconnect myself and do away with all the other movies that these reference. And like you said, unfortunately, you saw National Treasure before this.
Yeah. And believe it or not, I had never seen National Treasure before.
What?
This was the first time I had seen National Treasure, because at the time it came out, I obviously didn't have a family or a child. I wrote it off as a kid's movie, and I didn't think that I needed to see it.
I think it was riding on the tails of the Da Vinci Code, which had come out. I think the book had come. Well, Angels and Demons had come out in 2000. The Da Vinci Code came out in 2003, the movie. And then this National Treasure came out in 2004. So I think it is like a kiddie version of that movie.
It is very family friendly. We're already talking about that. We haven't even finished Uncharted.
Yeah, no. You want to wrap this up? Because
let's wrap it up. Yeah, like you said, I really liked the end, even though it is implausible that these ships could be battering each other back and forth, being towed and dragged by helicopters. But it was reminiscent of King Kong versus Godzilla, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And he's lighting up a 500-year-old cannon,
which was pretty cool.
Firing. Yeah. So you want to see, they're swashbuckling back and forth. They're swinging. So there's stuff there. Again, if you're just going to suspend disbelief and be like, all right, this is happening, and we're just going with it.
Tom Holland, just like the character, you can't not like him, so it's fun to watch him, and he's serviceable in the movie. If you love him in the Spider-Man movies, he's the saving grace here, I think. Yeah. But there's a million other action movies I could name off that are better than this one.
We just did. Yeah.
It was a nice distraction for the 2 hours I was in the theater. If we're ready to give some buckets, because I hear that popcorn, I am gonna go. You see, I'm going to go a little less than 3. Usually a movie like this, I'm right in the middle with 3, but I'm going to go 2 3/4 with this one.
I will go a little bit higher. I think there's potential here. Obviously, the PlayStation, Sony wants this to be big. They want a franchise. And I could see Tom Holland becoming this character. Yeah, he did a lot of Spider-Man-y things in this. But you, like you said, you can't help but like this guy. He's got to work pretty hard to make you be turned off by him.
It's just too bad. It's too bad he wasn't in a better movie.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 3. And did you see that De Niro and Pesci were once attached to this?
I did read this, yeah.
Would have been those are old guys, first of all. So how
they would play into it, yeah.
Right.
And that there 3 or 4 directors came and went before they settled on Ruben Fleischer.
Yeah, Sean Levy, Seth Gordon. Tom Holland got this role because he went to Sony and he pitched a young James Bond movie. But I guess the way the pitch went was he waited until the very end of the pitch to tell them, oh, yeah, by the way, this is James Bond. And they said, yeah, it's not for us. But they liked what the moxie, I guess, that he had. And decided that he would be perfect for this part. It's Nathan Fillion. Did you see this? Nathan Fillion.
That he really campaigned to get himself as Nathan Drake.
Yeah, because in the video games, he's older.
And apparently the filmmakers, even all the directors that came, never took him seriously.
Which I don't get. I like Nathan Fillion.
I can see that, he's not like a marquee name. Maybe that's why. He's very much a cult figure.
Well, he could have been mainstream.
I like him. Don't get me wrong. I love Nathan Fillion.
It definitely would have been. You would have been much more tied into a Raiders comparison. I say next time, ditch Wahlberg and just pair Tom Holland up with the cat, and you got my ticket.
Don't need Wahlberg. You need Sonic in this movie.
Wait till this Halo guy starts showing up.
Yeah.
Then we're just talking like Free Guy, right?
Basically. I was reading some review headlines. I think the one that really caught it the best was The Guardian, an efficient, soulless hologram.
Wow.
It had some nice action, but yeah, There was nothing of substance there to back it up.
Christina dodged a bullet.
And she knew it. She
saw this one coming a mile away. So whatever.
But what she's also missing is National Treasure.
I cannot believe you have never seen this.
Well, let's go to the concession stand and come back and talk about it.
All right.
And now, before the next show starts, let's enjoy an intermission. You'll find our snack bar chock full of good things to eat and drink. Tasty, tempting hot dogs, thirst-quenching soft drinks, fresh, crunchy popcorn, a complete assortment of delicious candy, and a full line of cigarettes. You've plenty of time, so visit the snack bar now. A tasty treat will double your enjoyment of the show. For your convenience, we shall keep you informed of the remaining intermission time.
This was a staple in the Chandler household.
Was it?
As my kids growing up.
Well, I can see why. This is like maybe chaste is the wrong word, but it is very family friendly. And I was very happy to watch it with my son who loved it. So we went to go see Uncharted together, of course, the next day, the whole family, and we all watched National Treasure the night before. So, of course, I turned to him after we left the theater. Which one did you like better? Oh, yesterday's movie was much better than that.
Yeah.
Even with Tom Holland's involvement, he's like, he admitted, National Treasure was much better.
It is a vastly superior movie in every way. Starting with Nicolas Cage. Love him in this. And I have to apologize. It didn't make the final cut last week, but I kind of wrote off National Treasure before I saw it last week as like a big budget, Nicolas Cage getting the paycheck kind of a thing. And that's really how I saw it all these years, even though I've never actually seen it. And that's all it took for me to actually see the damn movie for me to realize how wrong I was. Yeah, I think the second movie could fall into that category, that it was just a paycheck. Because
really,
it's a vastly inferior version. And I think that Disney has a TV show in development, which makes perfect sense. Listen, first and foremost, I am a huge Benjamin Franklin junkie. He is my historical idol. I love this guy. And you start, anytime History of the Museum is on or any of those Illuminati, ancient alien things, I'm a sucker for that stuff. So when you start telling me about secret Freemason societies and, the Illuminati and the Knights Templar, and you start the history on this is all over the place. And I'm sure that there are better collegiates out there that will tell me that everything in this movie is wrong, but it doesn't matter because the characters believe it. I buy it. Like I said, in the last movie, everything just happened. Everything just like all the clues just were too easy to figure out. It took the kid 3/4 of a movie to remember that, oh, yeah, his brother used to write secret messages, on a piece of paper, which is basically National Treasure. That's,
The character played by Nicolas Cage, and he is Ben Franklin Gates.
Yep.
You got to have him lead you through. He's got to be smarter than you. And that wasn't the case with Uncharted.
But you get to see his thought process. That's the one thing with, and Nicolas Cage is brilliant at that. And this is before he just went off the rails. This was 2004. And he's a likable character and you root for him because at the core of it, he's doing the right thing. They're forced to steal the Declaration of Independence because they know that the other guy, Sean Bean, is going to steal it. So they go to the agencies or the FBI or whoever, and they're completely dismissed. So now the only way that they can save it is by stealing it themselves because they believe there's a secret map. And you see this little flashback in the beginning, the grandfather, who is Christopher Plummer, by the way. So and he tells young Benjamin Gates this family history and the story of this hidden.
I was convinced that he would be like ancient and wizened and come back at the end. It's like he can't be in it just for this little bit in the beginning.
You show up like Obi-Wan, like a gangster or whatever. Listen, you got Harvey Keitel that just shows up out of nowhere.
And he happens to be a Mason, and we only notice the ring at the very end. Yeah, look, and with a wink, look, yeah. I'm one too.
But I think that's the fun of this movie is that you're along for the ride with this character. You want him like he's obsessed with this. You see John Voight who's the dad, and he's like, I wasted 20 years of my life chasing this stupid thing, kid. Just let it go. So he's got this the schism between the dad and the son over this, and especially once the dad realizes that they stole the Declaration of Independence, which I don't think is that easy to steal, but I could be wrong. Who knows?
Well, they didn't really have an easy time. It wasn't like a walk in the park. But I think that this movie sets, like we were talking about Raiders, how the opening action sequence sets up the character rather than just dropping you into it. They do the same thing here because it's that sequence in the Arctic, which they actually filmed in Utah, which I thought was very funny.
Crazy.
So you see Ben Gates's character working with Ian Howe, who is Sean Bean, and he's bankrolling him. So there's a lot of similarities already between this and Uncharted because he's basically the Antonio Banderas character, but he doesn't get killed.
Unlimited resources.
Yeah. So he's bankrolling this job to look for the Freemasons' gold, which in this film, the Gates family feel that it is their birthright to get this gold. Of course, you've got a rich British guy. He is not a good guy. You know this right away. As soon as you hear him speak, a rich British guy. He's the bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
So there's a double cross. So for the rest of the movie, it's a race between Gates and Ian Howe to go after the gold. And they know that the key lies in the Declaration of Independence. So as you said, once Gates reports it to the FBI, like, I know that the Declaration is going to be stolen. They think he's a nut job. And the character of Abigail says, is Bigfoot going to take it or something to that effect?
Yeah. He actually has to lie about who he is because apparently this family has quite the history of, interfering and trying to find.
And being nuts. He's not stealing it to steal it. He's stealing it to protect it.
But the great thing is that he has a sidekick, Riley, who is the heart and soul of this movie.
Is this guy in any other movie? I've never seen him before.
Justin Bartha. I don't know. I know he's in the second one as well. He's the audience, I think. I feel that he is just along for the ride. There are times where he was just like clueless, but apparently we need him for certain things.
But I was a little unconvinced that Nicolas Cage's character would not know about the daylight savings time. Like, really? This guy knows everything else
he
but
does know everything. And it's like, again, if you're going to tell me there's like secret messages hidden in the artwork on the back of $100 bill, and all these clues. And it's so funny because once again, we were watching Mysteries at the Museum and they were talking about the printing press for the newspaper that ran the Silence Dogood letters. And I'm like, yeah, that was Benjamin Franklin. He was 15 years old and he's like scamming his little brother, trying to get him newspaper memberships or whatever. And my wife's like, how do you know that? And I'm like, National Treasure. Don't you remember this? It was historically accurate in some aspects. I don't really think there's there's a hidden map on the back of the Constitution, though.
But what's great about that aspect is that the Declaration of Independence becomes a character. You feel afraid for it. And all these situations that they put this document in, you're more scared for that than you are the characters in the movie. Like, save those. And I love that. I have to get me one of those little backpacks that only is for the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. I think only like architects have those. And nerds, actually, I carry my Star Wars poster in one when I go to conventions.
I'm going to say, I know you've got one somewhere, right? You must.
Yeah, but there is when the three of them are forced, they're being chased. They procure the declaration. They make it out. She realizes what's going on and says, "I'm not leaving your side because you got to return this." And then they're forced to go to the dad's house. And as they're laying lemon juice on the back of it to try and find out the little hidden message, he goes, "That looks old. Is that old?" He's like, yeah, at least 200, Dad. At least 200 years old. But at least the clues all make sense. At least to me, it's a little more logical progression. But he does the same thing, which is he ends up giving Ian this fake clue that sends him to the North Church in Boston. But
they're hopping from landmark to landmark, which I thought was cool because they bring in the Liberty Bell at one point. And I read somewhere that they'd never let anybody, and this is the first time they let anybody film in that Liberty Tower.
Yeah, that's crazy. because you could have. I mean, yeah, you do see them literally coming out the hatch and going underneath the Centennial Bell, which is the one that's hanging in the tower. The magical bifocals.
Those are cool, right? Those are so cool. Those are like the old style 3D glasses that you used to get in a in the newspaper whenever they show the Creature from the Black Lagoon on WPIX.
And this is why Benjamin Franklin is my idol. He was a freaking genius. Bifocal, you name it, this guy did it.
The treasure ends up being deep under the streets of New York City.
Yeah.
Wall Street and Broadway.
Wall Street and Broadway.
Because that's where the Declaration leads them to, here by the wall.
Yes. It is a really, really fun movie. It's if you like these these clue kind of chasing things, and this is, like you said, it's a family friendly movie. There is nothing offensive in this whatsoever.
I don't even know if they swear at all in this movie either.
I don't think so. Why would you? Why do you need to?
No. It looked like when they did actually break into that church and they found the big chamber going down under Trinity Church, I think they found Bruno's room there from Encanto.
we always have to bring him back to Encanto at this point, because I'll tell you that is a juggernaut, by the way. How is that movie like just becoming, it is,
it's like it's the new Frozen now. It's the new
crazy.
Frozen.
I don't get it.
No, neither do I.
We missed something.
Frozen I got, yes, but yeah, no, I could easily see that developed into a TV show, much like, do you remember the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles TV show? Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, where literally every week he was running into a different famous person, or, you could do the same thing. It could either be each week it's a new clue leading you to a new treasure, or, you're just hopping around the world and finding different stuff. But
and I also read that they are also seriously considering a third movie with the original cast. The TV show would not, like, as you said, would not have the original cast, but a third movie would.
No, and to be honest with you, a TV show could easily show the dad's exploits. All the stuff that he dealt with and became disillusioned with. Mm-hmm. But even he at the reveal of the treasure is very mummy-ish. There is some, again, 500-year-old pieces of wood they're walking down on it, supporting and whatnot. But most scholars will tell you that the Knights Templar never made it over here to the States. But listen, someone had to do something with their treasure.
So then comes the conundrum of what they're going to do with it. So just like Indiana Jones, he gives it away, right? So he's not going to keep it, but you learned he must have had a finder's fee or something on it, because they kept 1% each, I think. I think that's what Riley
half
of
said.
1%.
Half of 1%. Yeah. I really, really do not want to go to jail. That was his plea. Even though Ian really didn't do anything. He didn't steal it. He just shot at him. You're the one who stole the damn thing. Well, this guy wanted it. Oh, okay, we'll arrest him instead. Like, is that going to hold up in court, really?
Another really neat fact about this was, while they did film in the Liberty Bell Tower, they did not film in the actual Independence Hall. They filmed in the recreated Independence Hall, which is in Knott's Berry Farm, California.
Would we know the difference?
No, we wouldn't.
Yeah, we brought this up. We brought this up on one of the other episodes, which is how many times has the Oval Office been rebuilt? Right. Why don't you just build one set and rent it out? Same thing with Independence. Oh, you want to film in Independence Hall? We have that. We have that in the back lot.
Yep.
I wouldn't know. It could be a one-room schoolyard or schoolroom. I wouldn't know what's the difference. I do want to read this, though, which is a IMDb review. Now, this review dropped shortly after the movie came out. It's like 2004, 2005. And I just find it interesting, the way that this movie was perceived when it first came out. This is 2 out of 10, by the way. The computerized action sequences in this are elaborate but look too fake. I especially do not like the nearly 300-year-old wood planks in a damp building basement that can still support weight and are not infested with roaches, termites, or carpenter ants. How could the pest control industry possibly buy that? Cage
they actually comment on that.
Yes,
in
correct.
The movie.
They fall apart. They literally fall apart when 2 of them stand on it. So anyways, Cage has a capable performance, and that is the only thing that gets this film to a 2 on my rating. Take away Cage, and this film is a 0, a big 0. In fact, this film makes Cage's honeymoon in Vegas look like a masterpiece. I'm like, wow.
Don't watch a movie angry is what we said earlier. And apparently
your Cheerios that day. That was like,
so, but this makes me think, does this mean generations to come are going to love Uncharted? And we just pissed all over it?
Probably.
We're going to be the curmudgeons in 20 years' time.
When I came home from the theater, my wife always, so what'd you think? And I'm like, am I that guy now? Am I so jaded already? 3 years doing this podcast where I can't watch a movie and be and completely tear it apart. And she's like, you've always been like that. Wow, that's harsh. If I like a movie, I like a movie.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Uncharted is unworthy.
For your frame of reference, it doesn't make the cut.
Yeah. And I think that if you, especially your son, if he had gone in and seen Uncharted before he watched National Treasure, he might have walked out of there going, that was amazing. That was crazy.
Yeah. Because
everything in National Treasure is on the ground. There's no aerial chases. You're not flying around boats or, jumping out of planes. It's you're just being chased.
Yeah.
And yet it has more frenetic energy and you're more invested in the characters. So, and that's disappointing because, like I said, Uncharted had some nice opportunities. I can't say enough about this girl, Sophia Ali, and it's just unfortunate that, like I said, they sidelined her. They took her out of the equation.
They have more than set up a sequel, so we know that she'll be back, hopefully.
Which, by the way, that whole end sequence sequel, the little where you see Tom Holland's character and he's now negotiating with somebody else, and then Sully comes in and he makes reference, what's that on your lip? And he's got a mustache. I guess the character in the video game is notorious for this mustache.
Oh, okay.
So just like Hercule Poirot, which we got,
he's got an origin for his mustache.
We had an origin for his mustache. Now all of a sudden it magically shows up. So in the next movie, Sully's going to look like this, but that's in the trailer.
But I can imagine being a fan of the game and asking myself, where's his mustache?
Where's his mustache?
Yeah.
That's not Sully. That's not the Sully I love. I'm going to give you one more Ben Franklin fact, and then we'll tie this up. First of all, Ben Franklin was one of 17 children. His dad was a busy man, but his dad was a candle maker. And you know what candle makers are called, right? They are chandlers.
Ooh.
So there you go. So that's
do you have a ring? Do you have a ring that I don't know about?
I see every now and again I'll see like a little Mason sign on the back of someone's car. How do I become a Freemason? I am absolutely fascinated with this stuff.
But National Treasure was a huge box office success. It cost about $100 million to make, made $347 million back at the box office. So, and as you said, a sequel was done 3 or 4 years later, which I've never seen. Yeah. It's on Disney Plus. It's on Disney Plus.
Watch it. You should watch. I mean, if you really enjoyed it, watch it. They do bring some of his family members back into it. This one, I think, is just, again, it's like, all right, what can we do now? Let's bring in, the Mount Rushmore, and we'll create another hidden treasure kind of thing.
Up the nostril of one of the heads on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, they found Cary Grant up there.
This is directed by John Turteltaub, who we know for The Meg.
Oh, I didn't even make that reference. The Meg.
It's a megalodon.
Yeah. Oh, it's a megalodon. It's a Meg. That's a movie that keeps on giving, by the way.
It does.
Were we supposed to get a sequel for that?
We should. We really should.
Oh, it's a megalodon. I'm going to get a tattoo of that. All right.
Did we give buckets? We didn't give buckets yet to National Treasure.
I am going to solid 4.5 on this.
I'm going to give it 4. I'm giving it 4 buckets. I really liked it. Yeah.
I cannot believe that you have never seen this. And I'm glad that you got a chance.
And the reason I'm going so high is because it was a nice chance to watch something with my son that was completely, that we were both invested in.
Yep.
Something that we knew very little about going into it, and we were both invested.
That's always nice when you get surprised like that.
Yeah.
You know, especially something that you dismissed. I will tell you, we mentioned Pirates of the Caribbean. On principle, I refused to watch that movie for years just because it was based on a stupid ride at Disney. And I'm like, I'm just not doing it. And I had friends who were like, no, you need to watch this movie. And it is one of my favorite movies. It is, the sequel is pale in comparison. But that first movie is a fun ride. And we will eventually talk about that.
Eventually.
That is also a Bruckheimer production.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is.
Johnny Depp at the top of his game, my friend.
Yeah.
So anyway, what are we doing next week? I'm assuming that we are going to get Christina back.
Yes. Even though she's not any happier than I am about the 3-hour runtime of The Batman. And this is what we are covering next week.
The Batman. And here's a problem. In the theater, you can't pause it. You can't. No. You can't. I'll watch the rest of it tomorrow. No, you got to sit there. You got to take it.
Along with The Batman, we are watching What We Do in the Shadows, the film.
Which I have never seen.
Which you've never seen. And they've based now an FX TV show on the movie. But this is starring Taika Waititi.
So he did not direct this?
What We Do in the Shadows is a co-direction. Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement, who both star in the film.
Okay. Fair enough. So yes, I know you and Christina, big advocates of this.
Absolutely. And the TV show. So yeah, if you like this movie, then I implore you to go look at the TV show on FX.
Cool. We got Morbius coming up.
Morbius was on the schedule along with all these things, and yet this is the only thing that's still being held back. I don't know what they expect it to do at the box office.
Here's what I'm thinking. It's a stinker. If we hold it back long enough, people will forget about it.
Maybe
because I think they're already kind of distances themselves from the Spider-Man universe with this.
According to the trailer, it takes place in the Venom reality. Because he calls himself Venom at the end of the trailer. It's like, I'm only kidding.
But we see the Spider-Man.
The Vulture. Poster. Yeah, I don't know what is going on here. I don't know how they're going to resolve this.
This is the issue. And maybe they're holding it back. Well, no, it'd still be released before Multiverse of Madness.
It was supposed to come out before No Way Home. So the multiverse can't really play into it unless they went back and retrofit that in.
That could be. I mean, my theory is that all of these can still exist in the Marvel universe now, and they are just alternate timelines or just alternate reality.
Perhaps,
So all those Fox-owned properties, the X-Men franchise or whatever, they exist. They're just in another timeline. So we could theoretically see Hugh Jackman or some of these other characters who you didn't see the trailer for possibly show up, but they are not from our Earth reality kind of a thing. So,
well, that would be endless. The possibility you could bring in things from other franchises, from other movies, to exist in a multiverse
and really, really make things confusing. Which I feel that this is exactly.
Let's have a xenomorph then in Multiverse of Madness. Let's go. Let's continue down that path.
I like your thinking. You're now in charge of Marvel's next phase.
And Marvel and Parker Brothers, can you please bring Rom to the big screen? Will you please?
And the Micronauts.
You tell me, Marvel, that you can't offer Parker Brothers or whoever enough money to get the rights to that character. What are they doing with it? What are they doing with it?
I think they all fall under the Hasbro line now, though.
Can we trust Hasbro, the makers of Battleship, to do a good job with ROM?
Battleship. Oh, it was horrible. Oh, literally, they had the giant pegs.
And they have to realize this. They have to realize this at Hasbro, that it would only benefit them to let Marvel do what they will with ROM.
Sony saw the light at the end of the tunnel finally.
And while we're talking about it, Marvel did Godzilla, and it was canon in the Marvel universe for a while.
That is true. He did fight alongside the Avengers.
He did.
That's right. Oh man, we just opened up a Pandora's box of goodies. Break out the
and as
toy
you
box,
said,
kid.
as you said, Micronauts as well.
Yeah. All right. Well,
All
there
right.
you go. Until the GoBots show up, we're
Yeah.
all right. That's it. Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
We did go down some rabbit holes, but that's what Chip and I do.
That's what we do, and hopefully that's what you come for.
So that's it. We'll see you next week with the Batman.
Come back.
Batman. Think he's been working on his Batman voice?
You have to,
You have to, right?
unless you're going to go Schumacher with Batman. You've got to. That's the expectation now.
I'm Batman.
Or like
He's
Adam
gonna
West.
Change it up.
Or like Adam West. I'm Batman.
I guess we'll find out next week.
That would be a great Jeff Goldblum role. He is like Adam West personified. Jeff Goldblum. Get him as your Batman.
He has mastered the pause.
Yes, he has. Yes, he has.
So, all right. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Holy shit.
We could just continue on. Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIconfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
It's a megalodon.